We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? And I give the call to the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. In August of this year, the Prime Minister said Australia had, quote, turned the corner on inflation. Yet, devastatingly, last week we saw inflation rising again. Economists are saying this has all but killed off a much-needed rate cut before Christmas. Under Labor, we have rising inflation and rising unemployment. Prime Minister, households are stretched to the limit. When will prices come down for Australian families?
Call to the Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the Leader for her question, but of course, as everyone in this parliament knows, and Australians know as well, inflation had a 6 in front of it when we came to office, and it now has a 3 in front of it. Yes, there was a rise in the latest figures, but that was after a number of falls, and indeed with interest rates that the member referred to as well, commencing to fall under us. They started to rise under the former government, as the member knows well. And on unemployment, unemployment has a 4 in front of it as well. We have seen employment continue to grow, more than 1 million jobs being created on our watch, and indeed the average lowest unemployment of any government in 5 decades. We are very proud of our record when it comes to the economy, whether it be the fact that for the first time in decades this Treasurer produced 2 budget surpluses in a row, and have also produced, of course, lower deficits than what they went to the election on. At the election just held 6 months ago today, Mr Speaker, since the Australian people had their verdict on the choices that were before them. A Labor government committed to continuing to put that downward pressure on inflation, a Labor government continuing to provide cost of living relief, a Labor government continuing to stand up for Australian jobs, a Labor government committed to real action on climate change, or the alternative. The alternative that was before the Australian people was—
The Leader of the Opposition on a point of order.
It's a point of relevance, Mr Speaker. It was a direct question. When will prices start to come down?
Yeah, but you also indicated about inflation and employment. Now, the Prime Minister has dealt with the inflation numbers, the employment figures that he's answered in his question. So, yes, I understand you'd like a date or time, but I think in anyone's agreement the Prime Minister is being directly relevant, and he's been through— he's got 56 seconds left, and he'll be able to answer the question, and as long as he's being directly relevant, and I think everyone can agree that he is being directly relevant.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. The Australian people 6 months ago today had that choice before them, and they chose not to vote for the option that said, remarkably, and it is quite an achievement for our New Zealand brother who is here on the floor with us today, that they actually managed to go to an election saying that the deficits would be higher, but taxes would be higher as well. But the taxes would be higher as well. They put forward an option which said a vote for the Liberal Party is a vote for higher taxes and higher deficits. And the Australian people rejected them, and the Australian people are continuing to reject them.
Order. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the honourable member for Maribyrnong.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How have the Prime Minister's recent international meetings advanced Australia's national interest, and why is it important for Australian jobs, trade and industry at home?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Maribyrnong for her question. In all of our international engagements, there is one focus. How do we support Australian jobs? How do we support Australian economic growth? How do we set Australia up for the future? in today's globalised world, what happens around the world has an impact. The Russian invasion of Ukraine had an impact on global inflation in supermarkets, whether it be in New Zealand, Australia or anywhere else. And that is why we very much enjoy constructive engagement. We deal with our partners and allies respectfully in the interests of our national interest. And recently, in the last month, I've had 3 meetings with President Trump in New York firstly, then an extensive meeting in Washington, D.C., where I went with the Minister for Resources and our Minister for Industry as well. And then on the sidelines of APEC, we were able to have dinner last week. That is important because the United States is our most important ally. And the engagement that we have with the United States, whether it be the AUKUS arrangements that, of course, have been not just endorsed but strengthened by President Trump, whether it be our defence investments, which were endorsed by President Trump, or whether it be our critical minerals and rare earth strategies, which are very important that we engage in the opportunity that is there before Australia. This represents an $8.5 billion pipeline of critical minerals projects that's been identified already where Australia and the United States can work together to create jobs here, to create economic activity and economic benefit right here in Australia as well. Demand is growing, of course, for those minerals, but so is our capacity to value add to them. So one of the things that we want to do is to learn the lessons of the past, not just dig up resources, export them, and wait for value to be added and jobs created somewhere else. We want them created here. Similarly, at ASEAN and APEC, I met with more than 20 leaders, advocating for Australian trade, jobs and industry at every single opportunity. 1 in 4 of Australian jobs depends upon our trade, and that's why Australia supports free and fair trade. That's why we engage with our partners, and APEC alone makes up some 75% of Australia's trading relationships. We are trusted and respected in the eyes of the world precisely because we engage respectfully with the world, both the public sector and the private sector as well, as evidenced by the event hosted by BHP and Dominic Perrottet in Washington, D.C. as well.
Call to the Chief Opposition Whip.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, research conducted by the St Vincent de Paul Society shows Australian families are still confronting cost of living turmoil. 32% have skipped meals or gone without food to cover essentials. 36% of Australian families are concerned about going without food. 62% said that cost of living pressures are making it difficult to plan for Christmas this year. Is this what the Prime Minister meant when he said no Australian would be left behind?
Call to the order. I'll give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for his question. And of course, cost of living pressures are real, and that is why we are acting on them in a real way. We have, since July 1, delivered a pay rise for all minimum and award wage workers, taking the total increase under this government to over $9,000. Number of times that the coalition, in government or in opposition, has made a submission or a fair work case supporting an increase in real wages? Zero. 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 Now, we know they don't support net zero, but we know also they are net zero when it comes to increases in real wages. Superannuation guarantee increased to 12%. Paid parental leave extended to 24 weeks, and super now being paid on paid parental leave. More energy bill relief, opposed by those opposite each and every time. $10,000 bonus for housing apprentices on top of their wages, opposed by those opposite. The batteries program that has seen more than 100,000. I haven't caught up with the latest figure, but I'm sure you'll hear it later in question time. I'm sure it's coming. I'm confident of that. Australians taking up that
Members on my
opportunity.
left will cease
The
to
boost to
proceed.
Medicare that we are doing today, where more than 1,000 medical practices have already signed up to fully bulk bill everyone who goes through those doors, making an enormous difference. Urgent care clinics that we're opening up as well, another 50. We've cut student debt by 20%, something that we announced exactly 1 year ago, and remarkably was opposed by those opposite, and they took that to an election as a saving for them. What we did was do a saving for students and graduates of an average of $5,500 each time, making a difference to all of these measures. The $20,000 instant asset write-off extended for another year. More choice, lower costs and high-quality care for Australian women as well. And, of course, importantly, we have frozen draft beer excise for 2 years, making a difference as well. We will continue to engage in all of these measures, including cheaper medicines. There's one thing they have in common, though. Every single measure by the government before the last election and since has been opposed by those opposite.
Call to the honourable member for Moore.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Resources in Northern Australia. How is the Albanese Labor government diversifying the global supply chain of critical minerals and rare earths and boosting Australia's resource sector here at home?
Call to the Minister for Northern Australia and the Minister for Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Moore for his question. The need to diversify supply chains of critical minerals and rare earths is a global challenge. Our great island continent holds in its geology the elements of the periodic table we need for the modern technology we rely on, for the green energy production we need for our energy security and to reduce emissions, and for the technology that ensures our national security and our national defence. This government is stepping up to lead on critical mineral supply chains globally. Under the leadership of this Prime Minister, this government has invested $28 billion into an industry of global significance. Prime Minister Albanese and this government is leading efforts across the G7, the G20, the Quad and also bilaterally to diversify global supply. I was delighted to be alongside the Minister for Industry in Washington to witness our Prime Minister and the President of the United States agree the historic critical minerals framework. This Australia-US framework is now the model for all US engagement around the world, and together we are leading the way. It is an $8 billion pipeline of critical minerals projects that will bring more stable, more secure jobs to Australians right around this country. Mr Speaker, no Prime Minister has done more than this Prime Minister to boost the resources sector of this nation. In Canada last week, I was delighted to represent Australia at a meeting of G7 ministers in Toronto, where I discussed with G7 counterparts the implementation of a critical minerals production alliance, a collaboration between the G7 nations to diversify global critical minerals supply. Mr Speaker, there are three factors that get Australia a seat at the table of a G7 meeting of ministers. Firstly, it's our commitment to net zero emissions by 2050. Secondly, it's our commitment to environmental protection. And very importantly, it's our commitment to the sustainable production of critical minerals and rare earth elements and changing the supply chain monopoly. This government is committed to all three of those factors. Those opposite are committed to absolutely none of them, Mr Speaker. I was delighted to also sign a joint declaration on the sidelines, a declaration of intent with Canada to deepen our links with them and our collaboration on critical minerals and rare earths. I also witnessed the heads of agreement between Ucore, Wyloo and Hastings to link offtake to the Yangibana Rare Earths project, another critical project that will go to diversifying our supply chains. This government has done the hard work to develop policy in critical minerals and rare earths, and will continue to do this work to ensure the future of the critical minerals sector and the critical minerals and rare earths processing industry of this country.
Before I call the member for Warringah, I'll just do some quick acknowledgements. Pleased to inform the House that in the gallery today is the Australian Local Government Association National President, Councillor Matt Burnett, and representatives from the Local Government Association of Queensland, led by CEO Ms Alison Smith. I see a number of former members in the gallery today, including the Honourable Michael Lee, former member for Dobell and Minister in the Keating government, Louise Marcus, the former members for Greenway and Macquarie, and Graham Perrott, the former member for Moreton. Who I know will be silent during question time. Give a call to the honourable member for Warringah.
To the Prime Minister, Manel Lopez is a sound technician in the film industry with over 25 years' experience. He wrote to me, "I've reached the point where working in the industry is unsustainable. I'm at the end of my resilience mentally, financially. The situation has taken a huge toll on me and my family. This is happening all over the country. We need local content quotas, but we needed them 5 years ago. It was a promise that Labor took to the election. For many of us, it's almost too late. Will the government make good on its repeated promises to legislate local content quotas on streamers and save these Australian jobs?"
Give a call to the Prime Minister.
Just briefly, before I hand to the Arts Minister, Mr Speaker, we very much support the local content in the Australian arts sector right across the board, whether it be people who are involved in drama and production in that area, whether it be music, and Missy Higgins was good enough to come here to support Australian music today, whether it be all of the creative sector. We are really proud of what our government has done, and we'll continue to engage so that Australian voices are heard.
Give a call to the Leader of the House and the Minister for the Arts.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and thanks to the Prime Minister. The policy of the government hasn't changed, and the principle that we're working towards is really simple. If you pick up your remote control at home and you go to the ABC or SBS, you're guaranteed Australian content. If you go to the commercial TV stations, there's still some level of Australian content guaranteed. If you go to Foxtel, there's still Australian content. And yet sitting there with the same remote control, flicking to any of the streaming services, there's currently no guarantee of Australian content. And this is something where people are aware of some of the different negotiations that the government's been doing, but effectively the objective is simple. No matter which remote control you're holding, Australian content should be at your fingertips. And the methods that we've used previously for other forms of Australian content don't match with the streaming services. So, for example, what we do on free-to-air TV, where you have particular times of day and guarantees, don't work when you're dealing with an on-demand service. Similarly, the guaranteed funding that happens to SBS or the ABC doesn't work for a commercial streaming service. So the methods have to be different, and that means we need to work through a series of different trade obligations. But in doing so, the government's objective, which we've previously stated, remains completely on foot, and hope to continue to be able to report more to the House.
Call to the member for Gilmore.
My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How are people in rural and regional Australia taking up the opportunities of clean, reliable energy? What are the threats to the best interests of rural and regional Australians?
Give a call. Order. Give a call. Order. The member for Lyne. Give the call to the Honourable Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for her question. And what a champion job she does in representing the interests of regional Australians and rural Australians in this House, representing the aspirations of those on that beautiful part of the south coast of New South Wales. Now, Mr Speaker, the honourable member for Gilmore knows that people in regional Australia are taking up the opportunities for cheaper and more reliable energy, particularly through the Albanese government's cheaper home batteries policy, which I'm pleased to inform the House today has now been taken up by 108,494 Australian households. And increasingly we see a heavy representation from rural and regional Australia in those figures. And the member knows that the people of Gilmore have taken up the scheme with some great enthusiasm, but I have to say, not a podium finish anymore in New South Wales, because the electorate with the highest take-up of cheaper home batteries in all of New South Wales is Page, Mr Speaker. Second, we have Richmond. And coming in a very strong third in the trifecta is the member for Riverina, Mr Speaker, who has the third highest take-up of cheaper home batteries in all of Australia. I know it warms his heart, Mr Speaker. I know it warms his heart to see his constituents taking up the opportunities of cleaner, more reliable, cheaper energy. And many people who have solar panels and a battery get a net zero energy bill, Mr Speaker, which is a very good thing to get a net zero energy bill, and some of them indeed paid. And of course, just as in the small scale, this is also true with the large scale. And of course, people in rural and regional Australia know we need to get this right. We need to get the community consultation right and the community benefits right, Mr Speaker. And it's good to know that around $200 million of community benefits will flow to regional communities between now and 2030, and $1 billion of benefits for landholders and farmers who are taking up the opportunities and drought-proofing their income. These are matters that were discussed at the Farmers for Climate Action Conference in Canberra here earlier this year, which I spoke at. I didn't run into many members of the National Party there. In fact, I didn't see any. But also they know that rural and regional Australia are the people who are going to pay the price of climate change, with natural disasters and farm productivity falling. And this is a view
members on my left
put by the President of the Young Nationals, who said in relation to any decision to move away from net zero, regional Australians will be paying the price for increased natural disasters. And I think Perrin Reddy is correct, Mr Speaker. He's speaking up for future generations in regional Australia who know that they will pay a price from natural disasters and falling farm productivity. And that will be the price of a betrayal by those who represent farmers, those who are meant to represent farmers in regional Australia, but who just do not.
Call to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question goes to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister finally pulled his Treasurer into line, forcing a backflip on his super tax. While the Prime Minister was overseas, inflation hit its highest level in 2.5 years, smashing through the top of the RBA's target band. Now the Prime Minister has returned home. Will he again pull his Treasurer into line to stop his spending spree, taking pressure off mortgage holders, paying $1,800 more every single month on interest than compared to when the Coalition left office?
Order. Call to the Prime Minister.
I'm pleased to get a question from someone who, of course, is now Shadow Treasurer, who was promoted into the position of Shadow Treasurer after going to an election with a $600 billion plan for nuclear power in the 2040s. In the 2040s. In the 2040s.
The Deputy Leader's
asked. He has the
question.
right to come here and ask a question that speaks about spending sprees when he had a $600 billion plan, and the previous question. The
Prime Minister, the yelling is going to stop. Deputy Leader of the Opposition, we don't need interjections. I can live with, but not the yelling. So no more interjections. I'm going to have to warn you. We'll reset, and the Prime Minister will continue with his answer.
The previous question, Mr Speaker, as you recall, was about cost of living measures, where we know that if you listen between the lines there to that question, what they're saying is they would rip and cut everything that we are doing when it comes to cost of living measures to assist people. That is what we know that they would do, because it is in their DNA. And then we had the hide to ask a question about superannuation. Now, Labor is the party of superannuation. We created it, we strengthened it, and the measures that have been put forward by the Treasurer will further strengthen the universal superannuation system. For a start, a small number, though apoplectic, about 0.5% of people who will be impacted by the changes. An equity measure in which not only now do we have an equity measure that we tried to get through last time, blocked by the no-alition in the Senate, now we have a two-tier system, making, just as our income tax system under this government is progressive, like the changes that we made to stage 3, we have made changes to superannuation which will make it more progressive as well, consistent with what Labor governments do every single time. And at the same time, of course, we have legislated—
the Prime Minister will pause. I've been really fair with the Deputy Leader, and I was crystal clear. Instead of no interjections, I said the yelling was stop, interjections, so you're going to have to leave under 94A. If I give a commitment, I expect people to listen, and I can't be fairer than that. You can have a good go, but no one can take the mickey here. The Prime Minister has the call.
There's 5 measures: paid parental leave, super unpaid parental leave. We have done, never even thought about by those opposite. Last week, payday super passed the House, giving a lifetime boost to Australian super balances, never done by those opposite. Empowering the ATO to identify and follow up unpaid super so that it's paid fairly. The changes we've made to lift the low-income super tax offset to $810 and increase the eligibility threshold from $37,000 to $45,000. All of these measures strengthening superannuation under this Treasurer and the Assistant Treasurer as well.
Concluded.
That is what Labor governments do.
Call to the member for Cornwall.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on our commitment for more Australians to access bulk billing? Why is it so important after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker. The member for Cornwall, frankly, has had too much contact with the healthcare system over the last 12 months. First of all, the system caring for his mum and his wife, Natasha, and their beautiful baby boy, Noah. Noah returned home on election day from a long stay in the neonatal unit at Northern Hospital 6 months ago today, and we're delighted he's doing so well. He told us in his first speech, Mr Speaker, how much he cherished Medicare as a son, as a husband and a father, and I know now how hard he's working to strengthen Medicare as a member of this parliament. Last week, fewer than 40% of GP clinics in the member for Cornwall's electorate bulk billed all of their patients. This week, in just a few days, that number has almost doubled to over 75%. Today, 3 in 4 GP clinics in the member for Cornwall's electorate are bulk billing every single patient that comes through their door because of the record investment that kicked off from our government this Saturday, Mr Speaker. Now, when we came to government, of course, bulk billing was in freefall. That's not my description. It's the word used by the College of GPs. And it's no mystery why, because after Peter Dutton had frozen the Medicare rebate for a couple of years, the Leader of the Opposition now, when she became Health Minister, not only locked in that freeze, but it extended it for 4 long years, Mr Speaker. And surprise, surprise, when you freeze the income of GPs, bulk billing starts to come under pressure. Well, we're turning that around, Mr Speaker. We are turning that around because, for Labor, bulk billing is the beating heart of the Medicare system, a system that means Australians visit their GP when they need to, rather than when they feel they can finally afford to, Mr Speaker. Over 3 budgets now, this government, led by this Prime Minister, has steadily repaired the damage, the vandalism done to Medicare by the Liberal Party. We've delivered the 3 biggest overall increases to the Medicare rebate in 30 years, number 1, number 2, number 3, since Paul Keating was Prime Minister. We tripled the bulk billing incentive that doctors receive to bulk bill pensioners and concession card holders and kids, which has turned the bulk billing rate around for those 11 million Australians back up to 92%, Mr Speaker. And from this weekend, for the first time ever, we've extended bulk billing support to every single Australian. Today, well over 1,000 general practices that last week were charging gap fees, this week are bulk billing every single patient that comes through that door. And that will grow every single day, Mr Speaker, as we go about the hard work of delivering on our promise to strengthen Medicare.
Call to the member for Gippsland.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. The now Prime Minister issued a media release on May 24, 2020 titled "Tasmanian War Hero Teddy Sheehan Deserves Victoria Cross." And I quote, "It is never too late to honour the meaning of lest we forget, or to commemorate the courage of one of our own." Prime Minister, does the 20-year time limit his government is placing on inquiries on the Defence Honours and Awards Appeals Tribunal mean that Teddy Sheehan's gallantry would not have been a reviewable action?
Call to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and the Minister for Defence Personnel.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for his question, because it goes to the heart of one of the problems in his critique of the legislation that's being considered by the House at the moment, which is why we are attempting to modernise the way in which the tribunal operates. He also tries to use as an example, which he just did then, a matter that, one, an application could still be brought to defence for such honour to be bestowed, two, an inquiry could still be conducted in relation to, and three, and most importantly, in making that critique, he tries to imply in some way that with what the tribunal did in the case of Teddy Sheehan was the thing that affected the previous government's decision. The reason the Prime Minister put out that press release in the first place was because the previous government, despite the tribunal's recommendation, said no and set up in a completely separate process because of the pressure brought upon by veterans, and this now government went in opposition. Stop misleading people, Shadow Minister.
Order. The member for Gippsland. The House comes to order. We'll hear from the honourable member for Werriwa.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to ease the cost of living and to strengthen Medicare after a decade of cuts and neglect? How does this compare to other approaches?
The call to the Treasurer.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Thanks to the member for Werriwa for her question, but much more importantly than that, thanks for being a champion for Medicare in your local community to the southwest of Sydney. Mr Speaker, even with the progress that we've made, getting inflation down to half what we inherited from those opposite, even with getting real wages growing again and keeping unemployment low and 3 interest rate cuts already this year, we do know that Australians are still under pressure. But more than acknowledging that, we're doing something about it. We're delivering cost of living relief, we're securing our AAA credit rating, we're managing the budget and managing the economy in a responsible way. And one of the most important ways that we are delivering that cost of living relief is by strengthening Medicare in every community. And as the Minister for Health said a moment ago, Saturday was a really important day because we started expanding bulk billing incentives and started bonuses for practices that bulk bill every patient. Now, we are strengthening Medicare because more bulk billing means less pressure on families. It's the same reason we're building more urgent care clinics. It's the same reason we lifted the low-income threshold for the Medicare levy and why we're making medicines cheaper, at the same time as we're protecting penalty rates, boosting wages, cutting student debt, helping with electricity bills, making batteries cheaper, at the same time as we've got 2 more tax cuts on the way, why we're boosting super balances and the Listo and getting the super guarantee to 12%. It's why we're paying super on paid parental leave, paying it on payday, making super fairer from top to bottom, as the Prime Minister said a moment ago. Now, Mr Speaker, the progress that we have made together in our economy has already given the Reserve Bank Board the confidence to cut interest rates 3 times this year. When we came to office, interest rates were coming up. They've gone down 3 times this year. And the interest rate cuts already in the system are saving a household with a $700,000 mortgage about $330 a month, or around $4,000 a year. So, Mr Speaker, we are delivering cost of living help and responsible economic management, and that's the difference between this side of the House and that side of the House. They are divided, they are divisive, and they are in disarray. They have net zero credibility on the cost of living or on the budget or on the economy. But we won't be distracted by the Hunger Games which are playing out on that side of the House. We will continue to deliver for the people who sent us here to represent them. And strengthening Medicare and delivering cost of living relief in the most responsible way we can is a really important part of that effort.
Call to the member for Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. The Western Sydney suburbs of Campbelltown, Mount Druitt and Liverpool have two things in common. One, more than 90% of mortgage holders are struggling to pay their mortgage. Two, they're represented by Labor MPs. Prime Minister, why do Australian households have to suffer because this government can't control its reckless spending and inflation? Does the Prime Minister have any plan to address mortgage stress in these Western Sydney suburbs?
Order. Order. I'll give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for her question. And of course, as the Treasurer has just outlined, since we have come to office, inflation is half of what we inherited. Interest rates have gone down 3 times this year. They started to rise under those opposite. We went to an election promising much lower spending than those opposite, which is why they had two higher deficits going forward. At the same time, of course, what matters to a household income is money coming in as well as money going out. And what we've done is increase real wages. Quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter, we have increased real wages, opposed by those opposite. They opposed all of our industrial relations measures. They opposed common sense measures such as same job, same pay. I've met people in those electorates, such as workers in the aviation sector who are literally earning 5 figures more than they would have as a direct result of our same job, same pay legislation. We've created 1.1 million jobs. 3 in 5 of them have been full-time. Under this government, the gap between women's wages and male wages is the lowest it's ever been. We have record women's workforce participation as well, and we've produced tax cuts for every single taxpayer, and there's 2 more rounds to come. We want people to earn more and to keep more of what they earn, something that we've said repeatedly that I've noticed has been repeated without the substance by some of those opposite as well. So we'll continue to roll out cost of living support, and I'd ask the member for Lindsay to think about supporting some of it sometime. Supporting energy bill relief, supporting cheaper childcare, supporting cheaper medicines or the 60-day dispensing, supporting the measures that have come in today, which will allow for increased GP appointments, supporting the batteries that are being rolled out in the member for Lindsay's electorate, supporting free TAFE. Remember free TAFE, something that those opposite have said from the top down that people don't value it if they don't pay for it. Well, let me tell you, there's 685,000 Australians have benefited from free TAFE. Those opposite opposed, and of course they opposed as well the student debt relief for more than 3 million Australians. This government will continue to stand up for a strong economy, continue to stand up on issues like cost of living relief. Those opposite will continue to just oppose everything, whether it's opposing what we're doing or opposing what each other are doing.
Has concluded. The call to the member for Bendigo.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare in the regions? Why is this so important after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the member for Bendigo for her question. Well, Victorians know there's a healthy rivalry between Bendigo and Ballarat, but what there's not rivalry about is the fact that both of us know just how important Medicare and bulk billing is to our regional communities. When you're sick and you need to see a doctor, it shouldn't be a struggle. It is why this government is making the single largest investment in Medicare since its creation over 40 years ago, with an $8.5 billion that is delivering more bulk billing and more doctors across Australia. For the first time, bulk billing incentives will be paid to GPs for every patient that they bulk bill, and we're delivering an additional 18 million bulk billed GP visits each year. Now, Medicare payments in regional bulk billing practices will be double what they are now. This investment is making a real difference across the whole of the country, but in our regions in particular, it is an absolute game changer. This investment is making a difference. In my own electorate, more GP clinics are now fully bulk billed. In fact, 18 clinics have changed from mixed bulk billing to bulk billing because of the changes of this government. That includes Q1 Medical in Lucas, Eureka Medical Centre in Ballarat and Springs Medical in Dalesford and Trentham, and they've also got a practice in Clinton in the member for Bendigo's electorate. The members for Flynn in Queensland and Cowper in the mid-north coast of New South Wales are seeing 16 clinics in their electorate move from mixed billing to bulk billing. So we know that more than 1,000 GP clinics have now taken up the challenge to actually now bulk bill 100% of their patients, and almost 800 of these are in regional and remote communities. It's all part of our commitment to ensure 9 out of 10 GP visits will be bulk billed by 2030. Now compare that, of course, to what those opposite did when they were in government. We saw in the 2014 cut and slash budget, of course, $50 billion cut from public hospitals, attempts to put increased co-payments to make medicines more expensive. They wanted to put a co-payment on every single emergency visit. And then what they also wanted to do is bake in a $7 and then a $20 GP tax. They then, because they couldn't get through that through the Senate, decided to freeze the Medicare rebate, not just for 2 years, but under the Leader of the Opposition's watch, then for 4 years. Now, that did significant damage to bulk billing rates and to our healthcare system. And after that decade of appalling neglect of our healthcare system, the wrecking of Medicare, this government is getting on with the job of actually restoring bulk billing, restoring Medicare, and that benefits regional Australia.
The call to the member for Ryan.
Thank you, Speaker. To the Prime Minister. Your proposed EPBC changes have received support from Chevron, BHP and the Minerals Council, but have been widely criticised by environment NGOs like the Australian Conservation Foundation as failing to protect nature and the planet. Why has Labor prioritised the interests of big corporations over people and nature?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for her question. And the truth is our environment laws aren't working. There's a very broad consensus that that is the case, and we are working to get it right because they're not working for business and they're not working for the environment. Approvals take too long, processes lack certainty and need to be streamlined. These are laws that were drafted in the Howard era for the Howard era and are just not fit for purpose. And we believe that the laws that are before the parliament are balanced. They will help to grow the economy, but they'll also help to make sure that future generations of Australians get to enjoy the benefits of our unique environment. The author of the report that was commissioned by the former government, Graham Samuel, has come out very clearly and said that the laws that have been put forward are consistent with Graham Samuel's review. I'm not quite sure that the member is being fair income with the quotes that she says of the groups that are supporting this legislation, to be honest. And what we need to do is to not play these games which led to nothing being carried during the last term of a no-election, people saying they're against it. They sat in the parliament for a long period of time and were up there in the Senate waiting for them to be carried.
The Prime Minister will pause. The member for Mallee on a point of order.
Speaker, you have made a ruling in the past about the Prime Minister and others referring to those on this side of the House as the no-election, and I'm bringing that to your attention.
If you resume your seat, we have dealt with this. The Prime Minister was talking about the no-election of everyone opposing it. If he was describing the coalition as the no-election. Well, I mean, There is a difference, but it would greatly help me if people just referred to everyone by their titles and political parties as well. But there is a difference. We had this discussion before. The member for Lindsay, I don't need that sort of commentary. It's not very professional. Well, order. The member Barker's not helping either. So, remind everyone with their correct titles, but the terms the Prime Minister is using are, and he believes are correct. So, yeah.
Themselves, because the coalition is just a word describing people who are against everything. It doesn't refer to the coalition necessarily or the Greens political party. It's a self-identification from that point of order by objecting to everything. But it's expanded, Mr Speaker. It's expanded because now we have people who say no to everything that the government puts forward, but they also say no to everything that each other put forward as well. And that's what we've seen from the disorder, if I can use that term, of those opposite that we've seen over the last period. This is sensible reform. Everyone in the Senate, regardless of where they come from, should look at it on its merits and should vote for it, because this is sensible. It's good for the environment, it's good for jobs, it's good for certainty, it's good for industry. What people want is quicker yeses or quicker nos. That's what this legislation is about.
The call to the honourable member for Dixon.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its commitment to strengthen Medicare? And how does it help Australians to access the quality, affordable health care they deserve? Are there any threats to this investment?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Dixon for her question, and as someone who welcome back to the parliament. And the last time we spoke was the member for Dixon was still in hospital receiving the sort of care that comes through our public health system that makes an enormous difference in order for people to fully contribute to society. And the member for Dixon will be contributing for a long period of time. I have no doubt about that, as well as a member of this place and as a champion of that community in the northern suburbs of Brisbane. Now, on Saturday, we delivered the biggest investment in Medicare since Labor created it 40 years ago, tripling the bulk billing incentive for every Australian, a commitment that we made in the electorate of Bass in January or February at the beginning of this year, but now delivering, creating a new incentive payment for GP clinics that bulk bill every patient. And the good news is that over 1,000 clinics have already signed up to become fully bulk billed because of our investment. And today I was with the Minister and the Senator for the ACT, Senator Gallagher, with Dr Conrad and a couple of his patients, John and Lucio. Lucio had been going to that clinic for 40 years, John for over a decade, hearing firsthand the difference that bulk billing of Medicare will make as well. Dr Conrad at that clinic, it does particularly specialise in sun checks, essentially for people's skin, something that we know is an example of where early intervention and identification is not only good for patients, it saves money to the system as well. If you get health care right, if you intervene early, if your GP has a relationship with the patients who they look after, which for many periods, for many of us, we've had the same GP for a long period of time. From that understanding and care and trust which is built up can be better health care which benefits the individual, but also will stop what might be a small problem becoming an acute health care issue. And that is why that community around Belconnen, where we were today, will really benefit from this, just one of the many clinics that are making this decision. And as they make that assessment about what is in the interests, the financial interests of the clinics, because some 18,000 of them will be better off. That will provide an incentive for us to deliver on the 90%, which is the objective of this policy being bulk billed.
The call to the member for Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Labor's housing policies are failing. Under Labor's $10 billion Housing Australian Future Fund, just 567 of the promised 40,000 social or affordable homes have been completed, and now it is being audited by the National Auditor. The Chair of Housing Australia has resigned after bullying allegations, and the government fell short of its construction target by 66,000 homes last year. Does the Prime Minister accept that his government is building fewer homes and has made housing affordability worse?
Call to the Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the member for his question, but I'm not sure if the member was here during the debacle that was the rolling door of governments in between 2013 and 2022. If he was, he would know that there weren't questions asked for most of that time of the Housing Minister.
Order. Members on my left. The member for Forrest. Just cease interjecting.
If he was here, he wouldn't have been possible for him to ask a question of the Housing Minister for most of that time, because they didn't even have one. They didn't even have one. And the member has the hide to ask. And the member opposite says that we didn't have a problem in housing during that period. With that one quote, this member exposes the fraud that is their attitude towards housing.
The Prime Minister was responding to an interjection, so it's going to be very difficult to take a point of order. But I'll just remind you only get one point of order, and we're only short way into question, so, yep, you can take it.
Halfway through, Mr Speaker, but the point of order is on relevance. I did ask the government. I did ask the Prime Minister about his.
Resume your seat. You can't just take points of order because you don't like the answer. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 examples from 2008 to 2015 under Speakers Bishop and Smith, people who just didn't take points of order. I can go through all of them, and I don't want to go down that path, and people will remove just for standing up for taking points of order. So, we're not going down that path either. Anyway, just order. Just make the point. Get on top of this. Prime Minister has the call.
Mr Speaker, the interjection from the member for Wright exposes precisely why there is an issue with housing that we inherited, because he says that they didn't have a minister because there wasn't an issue with housing in Australia up to 2022. He suggests that before the change of government there were no issues with housing. And the question that's asked by the member, speaking about the number of houses that have been completed under the HAF, they held up the HAF for month after month after month after month. And then they go, why aren't the houses built? You have got to be kidding me. Under the former government, we have completed, under our government, 5,000 social and affordable homes across the board. Under the former government, 373 in the entire time that they were in office, in 9 years. And today, building approvals rose 12% in the month of September to be 15.3% higher in through-the-year terms. We are delivering, whether it be social homes, whether it be supporting the build-to-rent scheme that they opposed as well, and the member for Wright's interjections, we will remind him of day after day, week after week, month after month.
Order. The member for Wright. The member for Wright might just cease interjecting. Order. The House comes to order. We'll hear from the honourable member for Bullwinkle.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Agriculture. How is the Albanese Labor government working with experts to strengthen Australia's preparedness and response capability to pests and diseases, and why is this so important for our farmers and our regions?
Call to the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I do want to thank our terrific member for Bullwinkle, a new seat created in this place, and she's a terrific representative, and I know that she's out there engaging with her farmers all the time, so I want to thank her for that. And of course, she, like the Albanese Labor government, does take our biosecurity system very seriously, Mr Speaker. And that's why we have been investing, and we've committed over $2 billion since we've come into office to strengthen our biosecurity system, which of course is the first line of protection for Australia's people, our animals and our ecosystems. Today is One Health Day, and One Health is the way that we are managing our biosecurity risks. So right across government, we are working together, and that is, as I've said, why we're investing that critical investment that I've been talking about. We know that that funding is critical to protecting our $100 billion agriculture, fisheries and forestry sector, our forest industries, our environment, our economy and, importantly, as the member for Bullwinkle will know, our regional jobs that rely on that agriculture, fisheries and forestry right across the country. And while Australia remains one of the few countries free from the world's most invasive pests and diseases, our work on the prevention, detection, eradication and management of the threats that we face never stops. But, Mr Speaker, I regret to say that just over a week ago, Australian scientists observed signs consistent with bird flu in wildlife during a management voyage to the subantarctic island of Heard Island. This is 4,000 kilometres southwest of Perth and about 1,700 kilometres north of the Antarctic, and is about 450 kilometres away from some of the subantarctic French islands where bird flu has been confirmed. So I want to be clear that this is a suspected case of bird flu. It is not a confirmed case of H5HPI bird flu, but of course it does reinforce the need for us to remain focused on preparing for an outbreak on mainland Australia. I want to advise the House that samples have been safely collected and securely packaged and will be tested when the RSV Noina returns to Australia later this month. It was detected, I'm very sad to say, in an unusual level of deaths of baby elephant seals on this Antarctic island. So this is very concerning indeed, and that's why we are investing $100 million to boost our preparedness across the country, adopting the One Health approach, as I've said, to protect our people, our animals and our ecosystems. We've also provided funding to the states and territories for critical equipment to make sure that we're ready, rapid mobilisation if there are outbreaks, including mobile laboratories, drones and emergency animal disease response trailers, because we all know that protecting this country is really, really important. We've also seen the impacts of the bird flu globally. It's costing billions of dollars in other countries, particularly when it does damage to poultry and impacting dairy herds, along with the impacts to human health, so it's important we get this right.
Call to the honourable member for Clark.
Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, recently the International Court of Justice found that states have a binding international obligation to assess and limit emissions, including Scope 3 emissions, to avert significant climate harm. Scope 3 includes captive carbon in exported coal and gas. So if the government won't include a climate trigger in environment laws or include Scope 3 emissions in the safeguards mechanism, what steps will you take to ensure Australia's compliance with the ICJ ruling?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question. I note that the government supported the reference of the ICJ case that was commenced by Vanuatu. I also note that we considered the Climate Change Authority's advice on our recent nationally determined contribution. The Climate Change Authority indeed considered the ICJ decision in weighing up their advice to the government under our world's best practice climate change target-setting regime. Therefore, their advice to us was to set the maximum possible level of ambition, which is advice, of course, that the government accepted. Now, what the honourable member is doing is then raising other issues around Scope 3 and international emissions in other countries, which he's entitled to do. But I'd make this point, that our obligation is to reduce our emissions and to work with other countries to help them reduce their emissions, not to come at it in some other way. And that's why we embark on the policies we do. But I do agree with this, with the honourable gentleman in this regard, that a massive opportunity we have, if we seize the economic opportunities of net zero, is to help other countries decarbonise through a future made in Australia, whether it be through green metals, whether it be through other ammonia and green hydrogen. These are the opportunities. And Treasury has modelled this and found that the emissions reduction possible internationally using Australian know-how and Australian resources is equivalent to 1.2% of world emissions, which is a big number, around 460 million tonnes. So this is a very great opportunity for our country if we seize those opportunities, if we seize them. If we ignore them, those opportunities to create jobs and wealth as we help the rest of the world decarbonise will be missed forever.
The call to the honourable member for Boothby.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Skills and Training. How is the Albanese Labor government breaking down barriers so Australians can get the skills they want in the jobs that we need? What has been the response?
The call to the Minister for Skills and Training.
Thanks, Speaker, and I want to thank my friend, the member for Boothby, for her question, and more particularly for the work that she's doing in the community she represents so well in Adelaide. She has spent a career backing people in, and she brings that here with enthusiasm. And, Speaker, while those opposite are divided, now more than ever if what I keep reading in the Financial Review is to be believed, this Albanese government is getting on with it and breaking down the barriers that have been holding Australians back. Now, it's been 12 months to the day since Labor announced we would cut student debt by 20%, and 6 months to the day since Australians backed us in at the May election because there are 3 million Australians who have a student debt, including over 280,000 who have VET student loans or Australian Apprenticeship Support loan accounts. And, Speaker, on the average VET loan, this is a saving of more than $2,000. This is real cost of living relief right now. And while it's easy to focus on these numbers because they are important, behind them are stories of Australians who are just trying to get ahead and make a contribution. And I think about students like Jennifer, who I met with the Prime Minister here from CIT. She'll have $8,000 slashed from her debt. She says to me it's a huge weight off her shoulders and now she can focus on finishing off her studies. And Ralph, who's studying a diploma of nursing, he'll save $3,000 thanks to this Albanese Labor government. And, of course, we haven't stopped here. We've reduced the amount Australians with a student debt have to pay every year and raised the threshold when people need to start repaying. And we've also made free TAFE into law, following 685,000 enrolments and more than 190,000 completions. These are measures delivering cost of living support now while helping Australians secure these future. Now, something these three measures have in common, Speaker, is that they were opposed by members on the other side of the House. It could be that the last time that they were on a unity ticket. The only thing members opposite can agree on is what they will oppose, not what they will do for Australians. While on this side of the House we're easing cost of living pressures for students to gain skills they want, for jobs we need now and into the future, building their careers while building the homes Australians need and enabling our clean energy aspirations. Because all of us in the Albanese government back Australians to get skills they want in the jobs they need. So while the Liberals and the Nationals are obsessed with their internal arguments over net zero, they've got net zero to say when it comes to skilling Australians for the jobs of the future. They are arguing amongst themselves while we are focusing on the Australian people. And we'll get on with delivering for people while they will continue to be consumed by denial, division and dysfunction.
Call the Prime Minister. Call the Prime Minister. Order. Prime Minister has the call. Members on my left.
I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Members can leave the chamber as quickly and as quietly as possible. We'll go to the Leader of the House with papers.
Speaker, these documents are tabled in accordance with the list circulated to honourable members earlier today. Full details of the documents will be recorded in the votes and proceedings.
I have received a message from the Senate returning the Fair Work